The landlord said every room was cleared out, except one. The closet door at the end of the hallway had no key, no handle, and no explanation. I moved in the day after the last tenant moved out. The place was quiet. Too quiet. Everything echoed, even my footsteps. The hardwood creaked in places that didn't make sense, like the bones of the house hadn't settled yet. The landlord, an older guy with breath that smelled like rust, handed me the keys without a smile. "Don't worry about the closet at the end of the hall," he said, almost like a reflex. "It's sealed. Been like that for years. No key. Just don't mess with it." I asked what was inside, and he shrugged. "Old junk, probably. Last tenant never went in there either." But something about that door stuck with me. It was different from the others, slightly shorter, almost like it had sunk into the floor over time. The paint around the frame was flaking, and there were scratch marks at the bottom. Not like from an animal, like from fingernails. The first few nights were uneventful. I unpacked, set up my desk, and tried to forget about the closet. But the fourth night changed everything. It started around 2:17 a.m. I checked. I heard something soft, not loud enough to be footsteps, but too distinct to be the wind. A brushing sound, almost like fabric dragging across wood. I sat up in bed, straining to hear. It stopped. I told myself it was my imagination. The next night, it happened again. Same time. This time there was a creak, then silence, then a dull knock. Once. Just once. It came from the hallway. I opened my bedroom door slowly. The hallway stretched in darkness, lit only by the weak glow of the nightlight I'd plugged into the wall. At the far end, the closet door stood quiet, but the air felt off, heavier, like something was awake now. I didn't sleep that night. By morning, I convinced myself it was the house settling, maybe the pipes, maybe my mind playing tricks. But that afternoon, while cleaning out the kitchen cabinets, I found something strange wedged behind the drawers. A folded piece of paper, yellowed and brittle. It looked like it had been ripped from a journal. The handwriting was shaky. Day 7. I still hear it breathing through the cracks. It knows I'm here. It doesn't sleep. I froze. There was no name, no date, just that sentence. I asked the landlord about it the next day. He looked pale. "You found that?" "Yes," I said. "What is it?" He hesitated. "There used to be someone in that unit years ago. Woman in her 30s. Rent paid automatically. Never saw her. Then one day it just stopped. We opened the place and it was empty. Except that closet. Couldn't get in. Still can't. We assumed she moved out. I asked if he ever reported her missing. He didn't answer. That night I taped a piece of paper over the closet door. I needed to know if it was being touched. I needed proof. At 2:17 a.m., I was already awake, sitting on the edge of my bed, staring down the hallway. It was dead silent. Until it wasn't. The brushing sound returned, fabric on wood, then a creak, then a knock, and then the tape fluttered to the ground. I swear to you, I didn't blink. I walked down the hall, slowly. Every part of me screamed not to. My hand trembled as I reached for the door, still locked. No handle, no give. But from inside, I heard breathing. Slow, wet, shallow, like something was conserving energy. I stumbled back and locked myself in my room. The next morning, I found another note. This one was slid under my bedroom door. Same handwriting. Day 29. It speaks in dreams. I can't leave. It won't let me leave. There were no footprints, no signs of entry. The closet had no handle. And yet, someone was writing from the inside. I didn't leave the apartment that morning. The second note sat on my kitchen table like a warning flare. The shaky handwriting etched into my mind. Whoever had written it had been inside these walls, inside that closet, longer than I'd been alive. I tried to call the landlord again, but his phone rang twice and went to voicemail. I left a message trying to sound calm, but my voice cracked halfway through. When I hung up, the apartment was so quiet I could hear the refrigerator humming 3 rooms away. The closet door at the end of the hallway looked even shorter now. like it had sunk another inch overnight. The scratches near the base seemed fresher. The paint curled outward as though something had pushed from the inside. I decided to push back. I dragged my heaviest chair down the hallway and jammed it under the doorknob. Not that there was a knob. It was a ridiculous gesture, but it made me feel less exposed. Then I set up my phone on a tripod to record. If something was coming out of that closet, I wanted evidence. The day dragged. Shadows in the corners looked darker than they should. I kept catching faint whispers, just beyond hearing, like someone speaking through fabric. Every time I turned my head, it stopped. By evening, the air had grown colder. My breath fogged faintly. I shut off all the lights and waited in the living room, watching the red recording light on my phone glow like a tiny heart. At 2:17 a.m. exactly, the scratching began. It wasn't like before, slow and subtle. This was frantic. Nails or claws scraping the wood up and down, faster and faster, as if trying to dig its way out. I couldn't move. My chest felt locked. Then a whisper drifted from the closet. Clear this time. "Help me." A voice, thin, hoarse, but unmistakably human. I forced myself to stand, legs trembling. My flashlight beam wavered across the hallway. The scratches stopped. Another note slid out from the base of the closet door. I watched it emerge in real time. I didn't want to pick it up, but my body moved on its own. Day 54. It knows my name. Now it writes for me. The paper was cold to the touch, like it had been in a freezer. Behind me, my phone beeped, battery low. I turned, and the screen glitched, static rippling across the live feed. For a moment, the screen showed not me, but a dark shape standing where I was. Then it snapped back. The whisper came again, louder. "Please." I backed up, pressing my spine against the wall. "Who are you?" I whispered back before I could stop myself. Silence. Then, very faintly, "You." The chair I'd wedged under the door rattled, then fell over. The closet door trembled once, twice, like something testing its own strength. I bolted into my bedroom and slammed the door. My phone clattered to the floor, still recording. Hours passed. No more scratching, no more whispers. Just silence so heavy it roared in my ears. When the sun rose, I found a text from the landlord. "I'll be by at noon. We'll open the closet together." He arrived carrying a crowbar and a small metal toolbox. His face was pale, his eyes bloodshot. He didn't say much, just knelt at the door and began working on the hinges. I hovered behind him, heart hammering, watching splinters curl away as the crowbar bit into the frame. With each pull, the door groaned like something waking up. Finally, with a sharp crack, the lock mechanism gave way. The door swung open a few inches, exhaling a breath of stale, icy air. We both leaned in. Inside was darkness so thick it looked like fabric, a smell of wet stone and old paper. On the floor lay a journal, its pages warped and yellowed. The cover was blank except for my name scrawled across it. I picked it up with shaking hands. The first entry read, "Day 1. I have been inside these walls my whole life. He doesn't know yet." I dropped it. My fingers were numb. Behind me, the landlord whispered, This can't be here." When I turned to look at him, his eyes were wide, fixed on something behind me. The closet door was closing, and I was still standing inside. The door clicked softly behind me, but it sounded deafening in the dark. I spun, heart hammering, and pushed at it with both hands. It didn't move. It was like the wood had turned to stone. The air was freezing and smelled of damp earth and rusted metal. My breath came out in white clouds. "Open the door!" I shouted. "It's stuck!" I heard the landlord on the other side, his voice muffled. "It's locked." "How is it locked?" Metal scraped against wood as he tried the crowbar again. The door didn't budge. The darkness pressed closer, heavier with every second. The journal lay at my feet where I'd dropped it. The pages fluttered although there was no breeze. I crouched down, hands trembling, and flipped to the next entry. "Day 19. The door won't open anymore. I think it feeds on the noise." I swallowed hard, the words blurring. Something moved at the edge of my vision. A ripple in the black like fabric stretching. A whisper rose around me, faint at first, then clearer. "You came back." I whipped my flashlight toward the sound. The beam cut through nothing. The dark swallowed it whole. But now I could hear breathing, not my own, wet and steady, right next to my ear. "Who are you?" I whispered. The voice sighed, almost relieved. "Me." But before, I stumbled backwards, slamming into the wall. The surface was soft, almost spongy under my palms, like it wasn't drywall at all, but skin stretched tight. My flashlight flickered, then died, plunging me into absolute black. On the other side of the door, the landlord was yelling. I could hear the crowbar clanging, the wood splintering. "Hold on! Don't move!" he shouted. "I'm getting it open!" Another entry in the journal glowed faintly, pale letters shimmering in the dark. I bent closer without wanting to, as if the words were pulling me down. Day 31. It whispers my name now. It says I was always here. It says it's my turn. I dropped the journal and pounded on the door. "Get me out!" I screamed. "Now!" The whisper was right behind me again. No more days. Something brushed the back of my neck. Cold fingers, or maybe strands of hair. I spun but saw nothing. My chest tightened, my vision narrowing. The dark itself seemed to shift, revealing shapes just beyond recognition. Long limbs pressed flat against the walls, faces half-formed and silent. I realized they weren't shapes at all. They were people, or what was left of them. The landlord's voice broke into a sob. "It won't open! It won't—" His words cut off abruptly. "Hello?" I pressed my ear to the door. No answer, just a faint scratching, like nails on wood. Then silence. My knees buckled. I slid to the floor, heart crashing against my ribs. The journal lay open, its final entry scrawled across both pages in frantic, overlapping lines. Day 54. It feeds on leaving. It feeds on remembering I am him, he is me. I clamped the book shut and hurled it at the far wall. It didn't hit the wall. It simply vanished into the black like a stone into deep water. Then the whisper came again, but this time it wasn't a whisper. It was my own voice. "You never left." I turned slowly. Out of the dark stepped a figure. My height, my build, my face. Except the eyes were hollow, and the skin was gray, stretched thin. It smiled the way you smile in a photograph you don't remember taking. I stumbled backward until my shoulders hit the door. My double tilted its head, watching me like a curious animal. "It's easier if you stop fighting," it said softly. I slammed my fists against the wood. "Please, somebody." The walls began to pulse like a heartbeat, shadows rising and falling with the sound. My double reached out a pale hand. Behind me, the door opened with a sudden lurch. I turned, but there was no hallway. Just another closet, smaller, tighter, lined with more doors. Each door had scratches at the bottom. Each door was locked from the inside. My double stepped closer, hand still outstretched. "It's your turn now." I tried to run, but my feet wouldn't move. The dark folded over me like a blanket. I heard the door click shut. The last thing I saw before everything went black was my own handwriting scrawling itself onto a fresh page of the journal. Day 1. I have been inside these walls my whole life. He doesn't know yet. And then there was nothing but breathing, not mine.